What really happens to a man when he grows older and never finds love? Hi, it's Vernon. I know this not because I just read about it, but because I've lived it for real. I spent years telling myself I was fine without love, that independence was enough, that connection was optional. But the truth caught up with me, and it came not with a bang, but with silence, with the long, empty evenings, with the subtle ways my energy, my purpose, and even my health began to shift. If you're someone who's chosen to go it alone, then this video is for you, so you don't make the same mistakes I did. Today, we're going to explore 4 truths about what truly happens to men who age without love, truths that may surprise you, challenge your assumptions, or even reflect your own lived experience. And whether you're a man walking this path or a woman who cares deeply about someone who is, these insights matter. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell and like this video, because someone you love might need to hear this more than you know. Are you ready to discover what really happens to men who age without love? The full truth that includes both the struggles and the surprises, the losses and the unexpected gains? Because what we're about to explore challenges everything our culture assumes about love, solitude, and what it means to live a meaningful life in our later years.
Number 1, they don't just become lonely, they become invisible. When a man ages without love, he doesn't just lose companionship. He begins to fade from view, not physically, but socially, emotionally, spiritually. It starts small, fewer phone calls, shorter conversations. People stop asking about his dreams, his opinions, even his past, not because they don't care, but because they assume he no longer matters in the same way. The ancient Greek concept of social death, existing physically while being treated as if you no longer fully exist socially, illuminates something profound about how our culture treats single older men. They become peripheral figures in a social landscape designed for pairs, gradually fading from the center of community life, not because they're incapable of contribution, but because their social category no longer has a clear place at the table. He goes to the store, and the cashier looks through him. He speaks in a group, and no one really responds. He starts to notice that rooms no longer shift when he walks in, because to the world, he's become part of the background. This isn't just loneliness, it's a slow erasure of identity. And I can tell you this because I've felt it too. There was a stretch between 65 and 68 when I lived alone, without a partner, without deep connection. I was still active, still working, still present, but I began to feel like I had become optional. I'd go days without anyone saying my name. The worst part wasn't being alone. It was realizing that no one expected me to be part of anything anymore. And once that silence takes root, it doesn't just live in your calendar. It lives in your voice, in your posture, in your sense of self. If you know men who are aging alone, actively include them in social planning rather than assuming they prefer solitude. If you're aging alone yourself, recognize that invisibility is a social construct that can be actively countered through intentional community engagement and the creation of new social structures that value your contribution. Have you ever seen this happen in someone you love? Or maybe you felt that slow fading yourself? I'd be honored if you shared in the comments. Your words might help another man feel seen again. While men aging without love do face the challenge of social invisibility, those who recognize and actively address this challenge often develop more diverse and meaningful social connections than they might have had otherwise. But this social adaptation often intersects with health challenges that unfold in unexpected ways.
Number 2, their health declines, but not how you'd expect. When we think of health problems in older men, we picture the usual suspects: heart issues, stiff joints, maybe some forgetfulness. But what most people miss is that for men aging without love, the first thing to deteriorate isn't their heart or their body, it's their will to engage with life. You see, love isn't just an emotional luxury, it's a biological stabilizer. Men who lack close relationships in later life have been shown to experience higher inflammation, lower immune function, and a sharper decline in cognitive performance. But it doesn't happen with a dramatic crash. It happens quietly. Less movement, less motivation, fewer reasons to get out of bed in the morning. Dr. Linda Waite's research on marriage and health reveals that while married men do have statistical advantages in health outcomes, the mechanisms are more complex than simple spousal monitoring. Her studies show that some single men develop what she calls health autonomy, sophisticated self-care skills, and medical advocacy abilities that married men often never need to develop. But he also faced the psychological stress of managing health anxiety alone, the practical challenges of recovery without built-in support, and the existential weight of confronting mortality without the comfort of a life partner to share the journey. Men aging without love must develop health advocacy skills that married men often rely on spouses to provide. They need to create intentional support networks for health crises rather than assuming family systems will automatically function. They often become more preventively minded because they understand the higher stakes of health problems when living alone. What health management skills do married people often outsource to their partners? How might single older adults actually develop superior self-advocacy and health awareness skills out of necessity? So when we talk about health decline in men without love, we're not just talking about numbers on a chart. We're talking about the loss of vitality, curiosity, and internal aliveness, the kind that no supplement or fitness plan can restore on its own. While the body may quietly reflect the absence of love, there's something else that changes even more subtly, but with far greater impact: the way a man begins to think about himself, his worth, and his place in the world.
Number 3. They develop unexpected sources of meaning and purpose. This past spring, my brother-in-law, Thomas, divorced for 8 years and living alone since 62, started what he called his grandfather project. He had no grandchildren and little contact with his adult children, but began mentoring boys at an after-school program who lacked strong male role models. This wasn't just volunteering. Thomas had discovered a deeper sense of purpose, one that transcended traditional family roles.
One evening, with a spark I hadn't seen in years, he told me, "Not having a family to focus on gave me unexpected freedom to show up for kids who need it, to invest my time and heart in ways that mattered to me without compromise. In some ways, I'm able to make a bigger impact because I'm not limited by family obligations." What Thomas revealed is one of the most surprising truths about men who age without love. They often find broader, more flexible forms of meaning, ones that reach beyond the nuclear family and create real, lasting impact in the world. Thomas's grandfather project grew into something bigger, mentoring young men, helping elderly neighbors, offering his skills to nonprofits, even starting a small scholarship for kids from single-parent homes. It wasn't a substitute for lost love. It was a genuine expression of care and purpose, made possible by the life he now led. But Thomas also acknowledged the complexity of this alternative path. There are lonely evenings when I wonder if all this community engagement is just elaborate distraction from the absence of intimate love. But then I see the impact I'm having on these kids, the difference I'm making in my neighborhood, and I realize this isn't consolation, it's calling. I might not have a wife to love, but I have a community to serve, and that feels deeply meaningful. Men aging without love often have emotional, temporal, and financial resources available for community engagement that married men cannot access. They can take risks, make commitments, and pursue purposes that don't have to be negotiated with partners or balanced against family obligations. This can lead to forms of contribution and impact that are uniquely possible for those not embedded in nuclear family structures. This development of alternative meaning isn't just consolation for missing love. It's often authentic expression of values and purposes that traditional family structures can constrain. Thomas discovered that he was actually well-suited for the kind of flexible, available mentorship that his single status made possible. Have you ever seen someone turn absence into contribution, using their solitude as a source of service? Or maybe you've done it yourself. I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Even with purpose, even with meaning, there's a truth many don't speak out loud. A man can live with impact and still ache for intimacy. And when that ache is unspoken too long, it starts to show in ways no one expects.
Number 4. Some discover a freedom they never knew they wanted. Not every man who ages without love is broken by it. For some, what begins as loss gradually reveals itself as liberation. Without the expectations of a partner or the daily negotiations of family life, these men begin to experience a kind of freedom they never imagined in their younger years. The freedom to choose their own rhythm, to wake up when they want, to travel lightly, to say yes or no without explanation. They rediscover hobbies. They take long walks without a destination. They move to places that feel good in their bones rather than just practical. And perhaps most importantly, they begin to live in relationship with themselves, sometimes for the first time. Dr. Bella DiPolo's research on singles reveals that many people who age alone develop what she calls self-sufficiency satisfaction, genuine contentment with autonomy that isn't simply compensation for missing partnership, but authentic preference for independent living. Her studies show that some older adults who have experienced both partnership and solitude actually prefer the freedom and self-determination that single life provides.
The practical implications challenge our assumptions about successful aging. Some people genuinely thrive in solitude and prefer the freedom it provides to the rewards of partnership. Contentment without romantic love isn't always compensation or settling. It can be authentic choice based on clear understanding of personal preferences and life stage needs. This kind of freedom isn't always loud or glamorous. Sometimes it looks like reading by the window at 6 a.m., or taking a spontaneous road trip without checking in with anyone, or finally being able to feel without filtering it for someone else's comfort. Now, let's be clear. This freedom isn't a rejection of love. It's the rediscovery of self after years of living in service to others. And for some men, it becomes a sacred kind of wholeness they never expected, but wouldn't trade.
As we come to the end of our time together, let me leave you with this wisdom from the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. Today, we've explored 4 profound truths about what really happens to men who age without love. They don't just become lonely. They often become socially invisible in ways that challenge them to create new forms of community engagement. Their health declines, but not in the straightforward ways we might expect. Sometimes developing superior self-awareness and health advocacy skills out of necessity. They develop unexpected sources of meaning and purpose that can be broader and more flexible than traditional family-focused roles allow. And perhaps most surprisingly, some discover forms of freedom and contentment they never knew they wanted, and genuinely prefer to the alternative of new relationships. These truths don't minimize the real challenges and losses that come with aging without love. Loneliness is real. Social isolation can be devastating. Health management is more difficult. The absence of intimate partnership represents a genuine loss that shouldn't be dismissed or romanticized. What these truths reveal is the remarkable adaptability of the human spirit and the multiple pathways to meaning, purpose, and even contentment that exist beyond our culture's narrow definitions of successful aging. They show us that while love matters profoundly, its absence doesn't inevitably lead to the tragic decline that our cultural narratives suggest. Give this video a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more honest, compassionate explorations of love, aging, purpose, and connection. And don't forget to click the notification bell, so each time we release something new, it reaches you right when it matters most. Because growing older doesn't have to mean growing invisible. It can mean growing deeper if we're willing to pay attention. Thank you for joining me today.